Nikki Knight,
Here.
Robin Holzer, Leon McReynolds. Why are you not on this list? Oh, yeah, they did one. There, no. But Leah Chambers is here also, and I'm going to write her in. Anybody else on the BAC who's my roll call did not call but should have, please introduce yourself. Okay, and then staff support folks, Ian Levacek, David Fields, I don't know if you say your own. I'm here. Juvenile Robles. Okay, we also have Brandon Mosley.
Present.
Any other staff or ex officio members out in the line?
I'm on the virtual line checking the chat. David, this is Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
And Perez Woods.
Oh, great. Hey, Paris.
Hey.
Okay. All right, one last chance. Anybody else join us? Okay, it does feel a little weird to be giving you all Microsoft Teams instructions when I'm not on Microsoft Teams, but I think I'm supposed to say these things. So please remember to stay on mute unless identified by the chair to speak. If you are connecting through the phone, please mute and unmute by pressing *6. Mute while you're listening, unmute to speak, and wait to be recognized by the chair. Okay, we are finally now going to dive into the agenda. We're going to start with our chair, Alejandro Perez, the chair of the Infrastructure Subcommittee. Anything you would like to tell us?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I'm the chair for this infrastructure meeting. So I hear this is basically, I can bring up whatever I want as long as it's bike related.
Pretty much.
Other than a couple of rides, it's been a busy bike month. Bike Summit just passed. We had a ghost bike ride at City Hall that passed. The Art Bike Parade, the first inaugural bike parade happened. So a lot of bike stuff was happening this month. I hope some of you got to attend today or this month. It's still not over. There's a couple of things maybe that might be coming around. And other than my introduction as chair for this committee, just bring up infrastructure things. And, my main issue is to see and find a solution or see a solution through seeing what we can do about maintenance. I'm happy to see all the infrastructure going up. But I also would like to see a follow through with maintenance on our bike lanes. I think we're making some steps. We have announced a kind of like a preliminary budget or estimate for how much it would cost to clean bike lanes in the previous BAC meetings. So I think that's a first step to kind of moving towards maintenance and the city kind of pushing through and hopefully putting in under CIP budget or city budget. So progress is being made, and thank you guys for being here.
Thank you. Any questions on the chair's report? No. I will, if you're okay, sir, if I can add one piece. The mayor gave his State of Mobility address last Thursday. He very clearly highlighted the work we and you are all doing on the bikeways, including a mention of the maintenance needs and focusing on that for the budget. So it is definitely getting, all your work is getting to the top of yours.
Awesome.
So you'd like that.
Definitely.
No other questions on the chair's report?
Okay. One. We have Leah. I'm not Leah. Sorry, Jessica. I'm looking at Leah. I'm sorry, but I see Jessica just popped up. Yes, Jessica. Hi.
Hey. Just a question on that maintenance piece, and I know that the budget conversations have been happening over the past few weeks. Is there any update on you know, I know Public Works was anticipated to get a pretty big bump in budget. Was maintenance included in that?
So I can answer that. So Public Works in the draft budget does have more money than in years past. It doesn't break down line item, but specifically about bikeways sweeping. It is all as part of their street maintenance plan, and that is an addition. That budget is higher than in years past.
Sharing anything in the chat?
Nothing in the chat.
All right, so the next item, move on to public comment. Is there anybody here that signed in or checked in to give any feedback, suggestions about the AC or the infrastructure?
Do you want to ask?
Go ahead. Anyone signed up in the chat, Sharon?
Not at this time.
Okay.
This is Brian Dotson. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Yes, I'd like to make a quick public comment regarding the current regulations on riding a bicycle on a sidewalk. The way it's set up right now, a lot of the infrastructure that we're building essentially puts us in a position where we're acting in contrast to the sidewalk ordinance. So this came up when we were doing a post appraisal of the West Chase infrastructure that was built. So I wanted to point that out and see if there's anything I can do to maybe get that changed.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
All right, so David said he had 2 emails that were emailed in.
Yes. So I will read the 2 public comments received by the BAC email address. One is from Harrison Wright, received Saturday, May 21st. Dear Bicycle Advisory Committee members, my name is Harrison Wright. I am a student at St. John's School. As part of an 8th grade civics project, I was asked to identify an issue concerning the public good here in Houston. I'm very interested in promoting bike safety. I'm hoping that you might find time to consider some ideas I have about the issue. I'm writing to request your consideration of a bike lane on Bel Air and Stella Link in the Grays Heights neighborhood. I really enjoy biking, but I don't feel safe when crossing or biking on Bel Air. I don't even feel comfortable biking 1 mile to the beautiful Evelyn's Park because of how dangerous and busy Bel Air can be. My community would benefit greatly with the addition of a bike lane. The number of cyclists in my community would increase exponentially. There are multiple schools within a 1 mile radius of Stella Link, including St. Mark's, Mark Twain, Pershing, and Westview. Many of these students live in the adjacent area, but still need to be driven to school because they don't feel safe biking, especially if they need to cross the busy intersection of Bel Air and Stella Link. Adults will benefit too. Many nurses and doctors live in my neighborhood and will use the bike lane to go to work at the medical center just 2 miles away. With rising gas prices and the cost of parking, biking is an even better commuting option for many people in the area. Additionally, this will help reduce the number of cars on Bel Air and actually prevent traffic congestion, a significant problem on the street. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please contact him.
David, may I jump in here? Tom Thompson has his hand up.
I have a second
One more.
comment received.
Okay.
Let me finish that, and then we'll go back around for public. Oh, Tom's not public. Is Tom's response to that public comment?
It was up before I think you started reading, so it may not be.
Okay, let me finish and then we'll go back to Tom. This is from John Bush, received Tuesday, May 24th. Houston Metro recently gave a public update of their Metro Rapid Inter-Katy Corridor project on May 4th. Many of the proposed BRT station locations will be convenient to popular biking trails at Memorial Park, White Oak Bayou, Buffalo Bayou, and Columbia Tap, or state-of-the-art bike facilities at Shepherd, Durham, and Bagby. I believe Metro allocating space for B-cycle stations and secure personal bike storage at the BRT stations will be mutually beneficial to cyclists and transit users. I want to encourage anyone else in support of these features to submit comments to the Metro project website. The Metro Rapid University Corridor project is at an earlier stage of design and is also accepting public comments. Thank you for your time. Those are the public comments we've received.
All right, and then go back to Tom, right?
Yeah, I'd like to reply to a couple of things. The first, adding on to what Brian stated regarding the bikes on sidewalks. You know, I was under the misunderstanding that it was only, you know, bikes are not allowed on sidewalks in the central business district and a handful of other places. The ordinance is pretty specific, and I don't have it in front of me. You know, Brian, maybe you do, but it's essentially any section of street where any 300-foot section that's commercial out of any sliding 600-foot section of street, you can't ride a bike on those sidewalks. So that expands. There's an awful lot of our city that falls under that. And I'm not familiar, and I know Brian is working with West Chase to do a kind of post-mortem on their recent additions to bikeway infrastructure in that area. So Brian, maybe you and I can get together, you know, separately just to discuss how the sidewalk restrictions might, you know, come into play on that. But I did send an email a couple of weeks ago to Ian. I've not heard back from him yet. And if there's anyone, you know, else within Public Works or within the planning department that could discuss the current ordinance wording and some suggestions that Brian had made to maybe make it less restrictive for biking, that might be worthy of discussion. And I wanted to reply. I didn't catch the name of the young man from, was it St. John's School, regarding bikeway, you know, bike lanes on Bel Air, which may, you know, I don't know that anyone's looked at it. Of course, I think the sections that he's talking about are not within the city of Houston city limits. I think, in fact, it's Stella Link. I think it's actually in Southside Place. And then, of course, west of there goes into Bel Air and east of there goes into the West U. So a lot of the area I think he's talking about is not within the city of Houston. So I don't know if anyone can reply to him, but it might be worth his edification just so that he understands that.
If you're all okay, staff will do that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We're taking
Thank you.
John balance and body language today.
Okay, so Mike Van Dusen has his hand up.
All right. go ahead, Mike.
Yes, I'd like to respond to the public comment regarding Metro Rapid. I sent a letter off today to Tom Lambert with some feedback based on a series of meetings that Super Neighborhood 22, 14, and 15 has had with Metro over this past year. And today is the last day for comments. They extended it to the 25th because they knew that we were going to have our Super Neighborhood meeting last week. And so I just want to let people know, anybody that wants to comment on that about station design, things of that sort, now's the time to do it. So they're going to have their board meeting tomorrow, by the way. That's all.
All right, Mike.
Can I make?
Go ahead, Omar.
I think so. The young person's comment was related to schools. Those schools, if I remember correctly, while Bel Air may not be inside the city limits of Houston, my understanding is those schools on Stella Links are within the city limits of Houston, and Houston Bike Plan addresses neighborhood connectivities to those schools in the Houston Bike Plan. So I think so we should take that into consideration and not just say these are, Bel Air is not inside the city limits.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The intention of the response would be showing him the bike plan and everything proposed in his area. Sorry, I didn't.
No. There is Grace Boulevard, that is a north-south street adjacent to the schools he mentioned, that ties into Grace Bayou, that is located within the city limits of Houston, and a neighborhood bikeway along that corridor would be an appropriate consideration based on the Houston Bike Plan.
All right.
Great, thank you. We have Sherry Wiesner, her hand has been up for a while.
Go ahead, Sherry.
what I have to say really probably fits more into your strategic bikeway time, but since I'm not on the committee, I just decided to break in now to make a comment. TERS 5's extension of the White Oak Bayou Trail from Moy Street through to Kansas as that first part of the connection over to Memorial Park is done. We still have sodding to do and some hydromulching to do. They're building a fence between the bike trail and the UPRR so that we don't end up with people over in the UPRR yard. And we're also adding fences to keep people from accidentally riding off the trail and into some of the connections into the bayou. But basically it's usable at this point. We fall in here into the same sort of question about sidewalks. This is an extension of the bike trail, but it's a concrete path that runs along the side of the road. So if someone interprets it as a sidewalk, you would have the same issue, although it is not commercial. But it is a bike trail and you know, obviously it's pedestrian trail also, but it is finished. We actually live in Oak Forest. My husband rode from Oak Forest today down to Moy Street, took that extension, rode through the neighborhood, across the pedestrian bridge, across I-10 through the neighborhood on the south side of I-10 and into Memorial Park. So this will help a lot. So I just wanted to get y'all updated on that. Our project to actually extend the shared use path that's on WA north of Washington to Center Street to allow bikes and pedestrians better access across Washington up to Center will be starting probably week after next. So that's the next step in our update, our upgrade. That's it.
Thank you, Sherry. So it's awesome to hear an 8th grader submitting comment to the BAC. Thanks a lot, Harrison. I can't imagine what I was doing in 8th grade. So, but hearing this comment really means a lot to me. Safe bikeways to school is another, you know, something that's dear to me too. And I think we can follow up with you and point you in the right direction where we can coordinate a little bit better and then hopefully get something for you to get you a safe path to school for you and your classmates. And then, well, John, yeah, that's pretty cool. Thanks for bringing that point up about the deadline. I think I'll submit a comment because I also want to, I think all Metro Transit Centers should have a kind of protected bike facility where you can lock up your bike if you're going to ride around. I've been hearing, you know, thefts here and there at the transit centers where people leave their bikes at. So something more of a locker would be ideal. I hope that's something that they could consider. Cool. And then, yeah, for the next item, we have Brian coming up, presenting the project for the flat funding.
Yes, if you go next slide, what I want to do, just I had spoken a couple meetings back about this possible funding. It has developed into a application will be made by TxDOT for 3 miles that you see there in orange, basically from Westheimer down to FM 1464 on the Barker Reservoir property. And then about a 1.5 mile, 2 mile segment from Westheimer up to Briar Forest, where currently the George Bush Trail finishes. It currently stops there. What that will do is provide a linkage that could tie into, or it basically ties you into the Brays Bayou Greenway through the D101 trail you see in green down there at the bottom. If you go to the next slide, the timing of this is that applications are due August 1st. This is not done through HGAC. It's done directly with Federal Highway Administration. It's a kind of unique process. They actually get into the design details after they award the project. And then we're looking at something like 2024 or so construction on it. I would like to, I don't know if this is possible, it'd be nice to have a letters of support from the BAC or from somebody with the city for this to submit with the applications to Federal Highway Administration. So that's my ask.
All right, Brian, that's awesome. I'm sure anywhere we can get money for bike trails would be more than welcome. So if David would be in agreement, I think we could be able to send a letter, definitely.
Right. I think we can draft something that says how this is in support of the city's long-range bike plan and our goal to hit gold level bike-friendly status by 2027.
I can, I'll send Tom the two pro formas that I have, you know, with the who-to and stuff, right, that you can adjust easily to provide the letters of support.
Could you send that to David Fields, please?
To David Fields, will do.
I'll draft something.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Brian. That's really good to hear that, you know, applying with federal, it's a federal application, right?
It's yes, it's Federal Highway Administration. It's you know, one of these things. Everybody's got their finger in it, but it's it doesn't go through HGAC. It's directly with the Federal Highway Administration and with TxDOT's involvement. So
Good deal. Thanks for presenting.
the thing about it, the reason that it's only applicable to access to federal lands, okay, and that's why it's unique to Addicks and Barker reservoirs, this funding source. So it isn't something that we can, you know, use in other parts of Houston. You know, it has to be used for access to federal lands.
Okay, I see it now. All right, good deal. Thanks. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I have some comments in the chat, not directly related to the presentation, but I just want to make sure I make this one. Jessica Wiggins was having trouble hearing Amar, and I see he's got a presentation coming up. So I was having a little difficulty myself. So Amar, please check your system and see if we can get it clearer. And then Jude Anderson wanted to say, go Terrace 5. Great work, Sherry. That's all I have.
All right, so we just had our computer pop up. Maybe you can get Teams working. But
Yeah, let me pull Amar's presentation in 1 second for those virtual.
In the meanwhile, Jessica, can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better.
So my comment was the City of Houston bike plan addresses some of the areas that were referenced by the student in his letter to the Bicycle Advisory Committee and other Houston bike plan. And so, and I think so David acknowledged that our response would be taking a comprehensive look at the area and then providing a response to him, even if Bel Air is not necessarily inside the city limits of Houston.
all right, Brandon, let me know when you're ready. And then
Okay.
Look at that.
All right. So I'm switching. Let me switch over audio to the conference room. Camera's right here.
Oh.
Yeah. Camera's right. Can you guys hear us?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right.
Remember, you can just, yeah, there you go. Ready to go, Mark?
Yeah, so Tom requested me to present the Harris County Toll Road Authority's active transportation investment item on today's Bicycle Advisory Committee. More information, an open house is coming, and you'll see on 31st of May to share more information with the general public or interested parties from Harris County Toll Road Authority. But on behalf of Harris County Toll Road Authority, I can make a brief presentation to this committee for their consideration. I think so. If you have this would allow you to think about comments or questions you may have for them. And I think so. Harris County Toll Road Authority would be the best party to engage in more questions or comments that you may have for them related to this presentation. So I'm going to walk you all through the presentation. So Harris County Toll Road Authority recently updated its mission statement, and as you can you go to the
I'll you 7 minutes.
I'll say next. To responsibly operate and maintain a safe, reliable, sustainable, and evolving mobility system that meets the diverse connectivity needs of all of Harris County residents. This is a much inclusive mission statement as compared to the prior mission statement that HECTRA, Harris County Toll Road Authority, had previously adopted. So this is sort of the first step that Harris County Toll Road Authority did after Roberto Trevino was made the current executive director of that organization. Under the guidance from Commissioner's Court, members of the Commissioner's Court, Harris County had initiated a number of initiatives. I'm going to talk about two of these initiatives. Me and Jessica are going to talk about two of these initiatives. These three initiatives are looking at Open Roads Playbook, which is really looking at existing Harris County infrastructure and see how that infrastructure could be used to help improve public health and also provide access to that infrastructure for people biking and walking for improving public health to that public health in general. I'm going to focus my comments today on the tollways to trails, which is basically developing a bikeway and trail infrastructure projects near Harris County toll roads. Next slide. Next one. Yeah. Okay. So this is not unique to the Houston-Harris County region. A number of toll road organizations in the country have already been doing this. The three examples that have been identified here are the Austin, the Toll Road Authority in Austin, the Toll Road Authority in Boulder with the US 36 Bikeway, and the Toll Road Authority in Illinois with the I-355. And you can see in the pictures that they have been building pedestrian bicycle infrastructure as part of their tollway projects, because these tollways do not allow for people walking and biking to use the tollway infrastructure. And so really the question is why HECTRA is getting involved into the tollways to trails. And I think so this goes to the 5 key things as you can see on the slide above, is really our region since 2012 and even before has gained a real momentum in building a lot of trails and bikeway infrastructure in our region to improve accessibility for people walking and biking in our region. And we see that this action or this initiative by Harris County Toll Road Authority on behalf of Harris County is taking it to the next step and builds that momentum. The second part of it is historically we have seen freeways and tollways in our region have really been barriers to communities. They have bisected communities, and so this is really an opportunity to see how do we improve accessibility between those communities that was a barrier that was created historically as a part of creating this tollway infrastructure. The third thing is to really to support the broader goal of Harris County to improve community public health. Public health is one of our region's biggest challenges, and addressing public health and addressing healthy communities should be almost every public agency's primary goal in making sure how they build infrastructure. The other part to it is advancing equity issues. Equity has been a challenge in our region. We have seen historically a number of these tollways and freeways have been created to underserved communities, and addressing that equity issue is an important thing for Harris County. And last but not the least is really building better communities. Our goal is to really improve the quality of life of our residents, and so this tollways to trailways plan really addresses improving quality of life for people living along these facilities. Next slide. This really goes into the three objectives about the project is a safer mobility system. This aligns with the City of Houston, Harris County's adoption of Vision Zero. And really making a step forward to or an action to addressing our commitment to addressing Vision Zero and improving safety within multimodal accessibility and safety within our community. And really connecting communities. I just mentioned earlier how these freeways have been barriers between communities. And so one of the objectives is really to connecting communities back together, improving access to schools. A number of times you see that school boundaries are across these tollways, and so addressing access to schools and public transit. And lastly, is really creating a cohesive network of systems for even people walking and biking, not just for major thoroughfares that cross across these tollways. Next slide. So here is so as the goal was to look at existing Harris County toll road infrastructure, this plan identified all the opportunities that are there. That was the first step, in identifying 63 projects that could potentially address these goals and objectives, and that resulted in 236 miles of ped bike connectivity in this region. And at an estimated cost of $601 million. Again, this was a really high level planning. This did not involve community engagement. This was just the first step to identify the opportunity before you get into engaging the community and further refining these as projects. So these were just identifying what are the opportunities of connectivity within and around the Harris County Toll Road Authority infrastructure. So these projects were categorized into three categories. First category was that you can see in the red on the map are really the network spine, which is really broad corridors or projects that could be more than 5 mile long corridors that could connect multiple communities, could be really considered as a spine through the network, are essential part of addressing that barrier between regional connectivity. So those are identified in red on this map. Then the second orange color you see are community connectors. These are addressing last mile access to opportunities or connections between communities, and basically addressing that gap within the system or access to that regional spine. And the third part is really a partnership projects were identified that would not necessarily fit under a HECTRA, but could be a great partnership between HECTRA and another HECTRA and another local partner to really complete that network of gaps. At the end of the day, transportation is really a business of network. If the network, it's really the network that makes it better. And so I think so we identified the Harris County Toll Road Authority study identified these three categories of projects. Next slide. These projects, the next step that they did was really look at, because it was a significant $600+ million worth of project, they had to come up with a prioritization matrix. So they looked at prioritizing these projects into by the ease of implementation and the level of benefit, how many people it serves, and all of the other factors that goes into identifying the level of benefit of the project. And then they basically, as you can see, they put all of these projects in a metrics and then categorized it into two big buckets. One is, what are the quick wins? What are the short-term opportunities that can be achieved? And then the second grouping was, what are the big moves? What are the regional moves that really, the big moves are basically networks that are critical so that other projects could happen along those networks to that can tie into the network and make that a better network. So I think so those are the two high-level categories that these projects were identified in. I'm going to go to the next slide. Here are the quick wins. Here are the projects in red in this map are really the quick wins that are identified on this on this exhibit. These are 22 projects, 65 miles, at an estimated cost of $131 million. So I'm not going to go specifically into the projects, but I'm just identifying opportunities at this point. Here is a exhibit of the big moves, or the projects that were identified at big moves. You can see the central corridor along the Harris County Toll Road, along the Hardy Toll Road corridor, that could potentially connect almost north of in Montgomery County, going all the way to downtown. That was identified as a big move opportunity. There are some other corridors like the West Park corridor that have been identified in the past. The connection between City of Webster and City of Houston on the east side, and other connections you can see on this map as potential opportunities for big moves. And then the last part of the last grouping, that was the network builders, the key connections that are really essentially help build the network, tie up existing facilities so that you have a more effective network in our region. Again, if you have more specific questions about these, you can ask Hector at the open house on May 31st, and I think so Jessica is going to share information about that slide. What else is in the plan? There's design guidance. There is a framework for connecting trails to surrounding communities, and then the next step really is the public participation process. While these are opportunities, we really need to engage the people in these communities and understand what the community needs are, goals are. So as you build infrastructure, it is something that is accepted by the community. I have requested Harris County Toll Road Authority as to when they would be publishing this information. My gut reaction, my expectation is it should be made public by when they go with the open house on the 31st of May. I would hope that this document, that the documents will be made public and I will ensure that they make it public by that time. So, Jessica, I think so. This goes. Should I pass on the next slide to you?
Sure, sounds great. So this is really if you haven't heard, the destination trail is really the first piece of implementing the grand tollways to trailways vision. And if you remember, we saw in the big moves map a really long line, as Amar said, going from the city of Houston to Webster, Texas, and that's what this is. And the idea here, and where the name the Destination Trail came from, is that it's really rooted in connecting cultural and historic destinations. This route is about 31 miles. It's divided into 5 segments and goes through 3 cities. So Houston, South Houston, and then Webster, Texas. You can see all of the wonderful, cultural and historic destinations that are just along the way, including, Project Row Houses, Emancipation Park, Mason Park, the Botanic Garden, Johnson Space Center. So there's a lot to go and see and experience along this corridor. Next slide, please. So as kind of a strategy of how to tackle this, because it's 31 miles, this isn't a short project. We're taking it one segment at a time. And this first segment includes mostly already built infrastructure. So you can see this 9-mile piece starts at Emancipation Park, continues along Elgin, which is currently does not have bike facilities, goes along the Columbia Tap Trail, which we know exists, and then extends east along Brays Bayou, which we know has a trail, at least on the northern portion of it, all the way until Mason Park. And so this effort around segment 1 is really focused on making enhancements of existing infrastructure. Next, please. And we are in the public engagement process for this segment, and we have an open house on May 31st, which is Tuesday, and that'll be at 6 p.m. at Emancipation Park Community Center and the Cultural Center. We have a website. Let's see, I'm posting it in the chat now. We have a website, and that also hosts a survey and a mapping tool. So we really need your help in getting folks to use this survey and mapping tool and explore the website. We include more information about some of the destinations along the destination trail. We also have lots of social media coming out of the Harris County Toll Road Authority social media accounts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So I've gotten a lot of help already from some folks in sharing that. Thanks and shout out to the planning department and Harris County Precinct 1. I believe the commissioner was the first person online to share on social media. He's very excited about it. But I hope you're excited about it too, and I hope you can get the word out and show up to the open house too, because it should be a lot of fun. Should I go ahead and read some of the questions, or does someone want to read the questions? How do you want to handle that?
If you don't mind grabbing those for me.
Yeah, sure. I just didn't know if they were complete. I didn't want to just interrupt the presentation. So the first thing we have, someone wants to know, it's Shirley Lee, could we have a copy of this presentation?
Yes, when I send out a post email about this meeting, these slides will be in that email.
Great, thank you. And Trevor Reichman says, wow, this is really substantial and exciting. I'm going to go down to the next one. Here's another question. Would you be using the medians on Elgin Street to create a fully off-street trail? This is from Joe Truffaut.
So I don't think the design for Elgin Street has really been decided upon yet, but I'm going to default to David and the rest of the city team to maybe pick up on that.
City team is not leading this design effort, so the city team cannot tell you that.
Well, design hasn't been solidified, but we do have questions in the survey and at the open house that will help us develop a design.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Jonathan Bush. He said, would the destination trail incorporate parts of the Emancipation National Historic Trail proposed by the National Park Service?
Yes, so, but the two efforts are aligned but different. So whereas the National Park Service's goal is really to collect history, stories, and kind of build a case to then share with Congress to get a national designation. That national designation does not include infrastructure. So we are really taking up the infrastructure piece and saying this process may take a while and we may or may not get the designation, but we still want to elevate the trail as it stands through Harris County.
Great, thank you. And then Shirley Lee says, with those identified projects presented earlier, all using HECTRA rights of way, Harris County Toll Road Authority rights of way?
No, most of them, so all of them will be adjacent or crossing under Harris County Toll Road Authority right of way, but every single project that we've showed you will require a partnership of some kind.
Thank you, Jessica. At this point, that's all the questions. I want to reiterate, well, there's another one just popped up. Before I do, though, I want to reiterate the fact that Jessica did put the webpage on the chat. So if you need information from the webpage, please go there. We've got another question from Trevor Reichman. What's the anticipated or desired start and completion of this trail?
I think we'd all love it to be done as quickly as possible, but I think because each segment is going to present new challenges and each community we go in is going to be different, I think we're going to have to take it segment by segment to really understand what our restraints are on the design side, and then give us a little bit of time to do the due diligence that we need to do in the community as well.
Great, that's all the questions. Thank you.
All right, so this is really awesome. I shared these news online and social media. A lot of people are excited. I have gotten other comments on the other side as well. So I don't know if Amar or Jessica maybe could answer them, because it's kind of an interesting question, I guess you could say, because the idea originally was that when the Hardy toll roads were built, that once the construction was completed or they paid for themselves, that the toll roads will no longer be paid or be charged, right? No longer be tolled. So this new step to kind of implement trails is kind of like, people see it as overreach. How or what is the understanding of that, or why that is, maybe people think about that, I understand that was what legislation that passed in the commissioner's court to approve this, right?
Yeah, so I think so. Whatever is being done by HECTRA is within the legislative authority given to HECTRA by the state. Again, while HECTRA reports to Commissioner's Court, it is the entity was created by the state, so it has to operate within the legislative authority it has been given by the state. So we are very aware of that question, and I think they are operating within their legislative authority.
So just to expand on that a little bit, HECTRA has must spend a certain amount to maintain the toll roads. And then after that is spent, there's kind of this piece that does not have to go towards maintaining the toll roads that they build. And so this piece is now going towards the trails. So that's been, that's in state statute, is that they're required to spend this amount of money to maintain the toll roads, and that's still continuing and will continue. But whatever surplus they have can go towards a more broad transportation investment effort.
Cool. And then another one I thought of was the overlap. I know that the Hardy Toll Road was being planned to run into downtown. I know, I think there's some legal issues with that. I don't know, it might be too early to think of like what would be the overlap between that and the current situation with that. Maybe Jessica might know, I'm not sure.
I don't know anything on that, but I can find out.
Yeah, once again, this is really awesome. I like it. People that ride from Houston to Galveston, I think are pretty excited about this. I would believe I think he was running down Old Galveston Road, which is one of their corridors. It's pretty awesome to hear. I do know that there is a Houston to Galveston ride this weekend. So if you could engage with them and talk to them about this, it'd be an awesome opportunity to get them to come out on May 31st. And then next up, we have David with not the destination, strategic bikeways.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So good afternoon, everybody. As everybody on this committee is very well aware, we have spent a long time being very methodical on a data-driven approach for how to spend the city's bikeways monies. That is the prioritization exercise, which you all provided feedback, input on the prominent factors. It is based on which are the next pieces of the bike plan should move forward, based on factors of demand and connectivity and safety and equity. After the GIS analysis was run, it wasn't just based on those numbers, but it came back to the BAC to make sure it really passed the smell test of is this working right. And in some, we expanded from an individual street to take a look at a wider corridor. And the 3 corridors that were recommended and which are moving forward are the Washington Avenue corridor, the Irvington corridor, and expanding the network in Gulfton. And those are moving forward. And that has been fabulous. In fact, many other cities have called us and asked about that methodology. They feel like that is very solid ground and you can talk to other people about where investments are going. But as we've been speaking to other people, they also said, well, how do you deal with anything not on the plan? I'm sure you must have smaller improvements that you'd like to do that are not these corridors. Where does that factor in? And we took a look at that. We also started hearing from members of the BAC and the general biking community. Well, what if there were small projects, not 5-mile long corridors or $100,000, $1 million projects, but smaller things? Where did those get funded from? And we, very frankly, we did not have an answer. So we did a little research. We have a proposal for discussion at the Infrastructure Committee. And if you're supportive of it, we would bring that to the full BAC for a vote. And it's very, very simple. So out of all the money every year that is identified for bikeways projects, we are proposing 10% of that be a set aside for strategic opportunities that could do one of 3 things or multiple of these things. Spot safety improvements, low cost improvements that would bring a facility from a low comfort to a high comfort, or projects that are not required by the prioritization but could be matched with somebody else's dollars to get it over the hump to do their project. And we've taken a look at what other cities have done, and 10% is about the sweet spot. Some don't name the number, some actually provide a lot more, but we really want to balance that commitment to those strategic, the prioritized projects, and we don't want to lose money and not be able to do those, but we do want to be able to react to these other options. There's not any particular math about that 10%. It is what feels like the right amount based on what other cities have done. In most years, in the past few years, the city's budget has included $1.1 million in bikeways funds, specifically for bikeways funds, so it would be $110,000. I want to be very, very upfront. $110,000 is not going to build Washington. It is not going to build, any of our big stuff. But what it can do is, add a block or 2 of something that isn't connecting. It could add some safety improvements at an intersection. And what we would propose is, if the 10% number is approved, then we would ask you to let staff come with packages of projects as they get proposed or identified for confirmation that they're meeting these criteria, with the understanding that it's not a call for projects, but once that 10% is used up for the year, it is used up for the year. We're not then going to ask for additional money from the big projects to come into that other bucket. And this gives everybody some checks and balances, but allows us to move forward kind of with the bigger picture projects as well as these smaller things at the same time. So I'd like to open it up, Mr. Chair, if you're okay, I'd like to open it up for discussion, questions. At this level, it's more of a conversation. We're not looking for a vote today.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll start off and say, listen, I like that. And so from those requirements, something I think about a lot is the where the ghost bike locations are at. So that's obviously something, maybe a spot safety improvement right there, right?
It may be, depending on the location,
Right,
that it's not, we wouldn't have to do a whole corridor.
we could certainly look at those.
Something like research can be done, like
Yeah.
why, what happened and whatnot. Okay. If anybody else has anything else to add or ideas?
We've got Joe with his hand up and then Jeff.
Hey guys, Joe Cutrufo with Bike Houston here. I just want to say I think this is a great idea. I appreciate David presenting this. You know, when we look around at the bike network, there's a lot of instances where we've seen places where a few $1,000s could make a big difference. Earlier this year, you may remember we presented a call for ideas. We called it the must fix list, most urgent street and trail fix list. We got over 200 responses, and there was actually a lot of trends in there where a lot of different people identified a lot of the same areas, things that couldn't be addressed through what Houston Bikeways had already proposed for that year. We see this 10% as something that could be used for that sort of initiative. Another example might be, if a Harris County precinct commissioner, for example, were to put up, several $100,000 for a project and then ask, the city to match it, and to ask a TERS and management district to help match and have it be a jointly funded project, this would free up some capital from the city to be able to take part in those strategic partnerships. Or, as Alejandro said, if God forbid somebody was killed in an area that the city wasn't already planning to make improvements at, we love to be proactive, but sometimes you have to be reactive when there's a high-profile crash. So this could potentially help, make some improvements in a place where we realize there's a need for it urgently.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. Well, first, I think this is really wise. The questions I have are, the funding that we've had allocated so far from the bike plan, I know it was 1.1 a year for 5 years, and I'm just wondering, has that money been spent, or are we continuing to get that money? And then my second question is it a different or the same process to spend that money, that 10% money, as opposed to the prioritized projects? How liquid is that 10% compared to the 90%?
Go ahead, David.
So the two responses on have we spent it, does it roll over? Yes and yes. We've been spending it, but part of it is identifying the construction while the design is finishing. So the money, say, very top of mind today, 11th Street, that money for construction we thought was going to already be in play for construction design. If it goes forward at this point, the design is almost done, and construction would start in the next fiscal year, because that's July 1. I don't think even given the green light, we wouldn't get out before then, but that money is allocated for that project. So it hasn't actually been spent, but it has been allocated. And smarter financial people than me have better language about those terms. But just so you understand, I want to be very upfront. We have not paid an invoice on the construction, but we know what construction project those dollars are going to. And on the second project, on the second question, yes, it is all effectively one pot of money, and we are able to spend it. The city is able to go in and do a project whenever we decide, we have that direction, we have the design. It is as liquid as itself, as each other.
Great. Right. Tom has his hand up. Tom Conson.
Yeah, this is kind of related to Jessica's question, but as to the 10%, if for some reason we did not spend, that 10% allocation in a given year, would the remainder just roll over to the next year, or what would happen?
Yes, that's another good way to say it. every year, anytime there are funds that have not been spent, there's a process to request rollover, which I have to explain why it was not rolled over. I literally just put in the language this week in case, we are at the end of this year. But so far, it's never been an issue that money gets clawed back as long as it's clear that we have a plan to spend that money.
Okay, that's great. I like the concept, and I certainly like the idea of having some flexibility so it's not tied into a rigid annual plan. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We have a question. Her hand is up by Ana Ramirez Huerta.
Thank you. I guess one of the questions that I had, and I got in a bit late, but David, I was wondering, the funding, which may be smaller, but the funding that gets from the bike parking tickets, I know a lot of folks do the training, but the funding or the fees for the bike parking fees, are those going to be also funneled into some of the improvements that you just mentioned, or how are those accounted for? Thank you.
I will need to look. I am under the impression those are not designated for a specific fund. Those go to general fund dollars. And that is most fines and fees go to the same place.
It's just as a follow-up, is there any opportunities since that's bike related? Is there any opportunity that the city could maybe research the opportunity of bike related fees or infractions be actually utilized to improve bike infrastructure?
I remember one is it's not all that much money. We're not talking about all that much, but I think it's the overall philosophy of how fines and fees go. That the city has kind of a consistent policy that we don't start allocating it to specific resources.
Be a good idea though.
And it's a pretty common approach nationwide, only because of how many individual funds and fees you might have to start allocating for. It starts to break it down.
All right. Is there anyone else? Otherwise, Leah.
Yeah. There is another question, you guys. Have you guys finished answering that, David?
Yeah. I have
Okay.
one question. David, do you think so? We are going to ensure that the funds, the 10% are going, even if it's going to make any spot improvements, they're making spot improvements related to bicycle facilities and make sure it doesn't get into the general pool of making safety improvements.
Yes, exactly. They will have to be tied to a bicycle improvement.
I just wanted to make sure that.
And I should have added that to the slide.
All right.
Miller has a question. Her hand is up.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to speak since this is like during an agenda item. But I had a question. I like that I like this idea because it also kind of reminds me of in housing, we sometimes have strike funds. And so we have like a fund that we can, if there's gap funding for a project, or if there is just a real, priority project that comes up. As you've mentioned, you'd have kind of a strike fund so that you can see that. And it would be really interesting to see if we could build this. So to the mention of the question from Ana Ramirez Huerta was really good in terms of like where does the parking and bike lane funding go? And maybe if we could tie that into a formalized fund, to kind of build on this priority projects area. I think that we need more bikeway funding, right? More than the 1.1 million. And if we're taking a percentage, I think that's great. It'd be also great to think about codifying other ways of growing that fund. Also the parking benefit districts as well.
That's a good point, Melissa. Oh, I don't know, something we can look at, I guess, something we could consider or talk about, find out more details. Leah.
Thank you. I just want to say I think this is great. I really appreciate you all kind of taking what folks have said and figuring out a way to make it work, because I think this can be so helpful in making some of those connections and safety improvements that are really important. And my question is, I can see where you talked about like the concepts will be presented to the BAC and then implementing. And I would say it seems like that's actually a pretty quick process. And I would just ask a little bit more about the process or just applaud a quicker one. And how fast can these be implemented?
So I appreciate that. Thank you. Staff could go quicker. We were trying to give the BAC a little bit of advisory committee opportunity, and we were afraid you would tell us, and we want to make sure you're following our guidelines. If you have inherent faith in staff that we're going to do right by you, we can go even faster. It would have to. I had not thought this out. I think it has to go to the BAC as a whole, not the infrastructure subcommittee.
So we would have an opportunity once every 3, yeah.
Is there any, like, since this is a strategic and like what Jessica mentioned, being more liquid, like do an emergency, like strategic project that comes up, like do a separate BAC for that specifically?
I will need to check with legal. There are certain requirements of a meeting and open meetings laws and documenting it. And I'm honestly not sure, but we will go back and check and provide some options when we present this to the committee of the whole.
Okay.
Alejandro, just to clarify, you have too much faith in public agencies. Just for us to do a basic move, just for even if an intersection is identified, to identify safety improvements, to design it, to get someone programmed to construct it, that process takes time. Even if you put all your will and faith behind it, it still takes a lot of time because you have to go through due process. Right. You also have to do outreach. You may have to do some amount of outreach. That all of those steps take time. So I think so. I understand that you want it to happen sooner, but I don't think so. David is saying that we would not do anything. They can do their assessment and identifying opportunities and stuff, and then make a case to BAC why this project is an important project to move forward, because it has community support, because there is a solution that is feasible, because there is a need that was identified. So I think so. That is something that David and Public Works can figure out a process to, so that they are not waiting on BAC, but still addressing the issue. If it's a safety issue, is an emergency, right? So I think so that can be worked out.
Well, that basically means almost like quarterly does work because the time it takes y'all to do the research and everything will it'll be enough time for y'all to present at the BAC. Fair enough?
With the opportunity, to call a special meeting if needed.
Right.
If legal says it's okay.
Yeah.
I just can't want to file with my lawyers.
Yeah.
Let's not.
It's good to have it and not need it and.
Yeah.
Very long.
Got one more.
And then go ahead on, raising hands.
Yes, Jorge Bustamante has his hand up.
Go ahead, Jorge.
Jorge, maybe you're on mute.
Hey, sorry about that. My computer froze right at that time. Hey everyone, Jorge Bustamante with Harris County Precinct 2. I just wanted to say this is a great idea to second all the comments. We do have our yearly call for partnership projects. So if you guys identify a project within Precinct 2 that could use some of this funding, if we can run it through that process and hopefully partner up. So just want to put it on the radar.
Thanks, Jorge. And then, so that's all. We can just move to the next item. Is the open forum. All right. So, anything not, I guess, like I said, related to like infrastructure, but not on the agenda, we can talk about. Anyone have any topics to come up with?
May I make a comment that was put in the chat by Jessica Wiggins just a minute ago? It's a little bit about what you guys were talking about, but it's Brian approached Park Houston on using the ticket funds and they said no.
It doesn't hurt to try. Joe, I see your hand up.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I just wanted to briefly say thanks to everyone who participated this past weekend in the Houston Bike Summit. Whether you were attending the Bike Summit Book Talk last Thursday, if you came out to the Bike Summit Soiree on Friday, or if you were part of the ride on Saturday, or all three, or any combination of the three. We really appreciate your support. We had a great time. We had a great panel discussion, and we had beautiful weather for the ride. So thanks to everyone who came up.
Thanks, Joe. It was great.
All right, Brandon.
On behalf of Brian Smith and Sharon and planning, thank you to all the BAC members who showed up to Bike to Work Day. It was an awesome event. We got some good footage, a nice ride. So I hope everyone had a good sweat, and glad to see the mayor come out. So thank you guys for your participation. It shows the strength of the committee and the support of the city. Yes.
Definitely. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. The weather was actually nice on that day, so sweat and all, I mean, it still felt great. Yeah, then David?
So 2 items. One, in addition to the Bike Houston events and Bike to Work Day Saturday, we also had a bike rodeo in Acres Homes as part of an extension of our Safe Routes to School program. And the kids were with Precinct 2 and many other partners. It is really amazing when we get back to the kids who have never had a chance to ride a bike that are being taught literally how, or a comfortable place. And they, I hope, will be the next people in your seats in the future. So we thank you for your support. And then one other item, you all know at this point, Brian Smith has been called up to active military duty. He's going to be gone from the city till the end of September. His absence will be sorely noted. We are missing him already. We support him and his mission there. We can't wait for him to come back. Staff may ask a little bit of grace as we're working a little bit shorthanded. Brandon and I will fill in for Brian's role here. If we're maybe a little slower in response, reach out a second time or let us know if we've missed something. Just give us a call. We're going to do our best and get up to speed.
Just a correction to David's statement. In partnership with Harris County Precinct 1 and Harris County Public Health, the Acres Home Rodeo was a great success.
As soon as I set it up,
So I would like to do bike rodeos in my neighborhood. How does that work out? I mean, I know it's a collaboration with the precinct, which would probably be precinct 2, right? Northline community. Because I know the squigglies on precinct 1 are a little weird. So that's basically just reaching out to Agent Garcia.
Yes, Commissioner Garcia over here.
All right, cool.
Give me a call, Alex.
Yeah, well, you already know. All right.
Jessica Wiggins.
Yeah, any more hands? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base on 11th Street a little bit and see if there was anything that BAC members could do to help support the implementation of that project.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
So the mayor, about 3 weeks ago at this point, announced he was going to conduct his own detailed review of the project. He asked staff for a briefing package. All things on our project website, all information we have published before, but in a very concentrated version. He has really ingested that analysis at a level electeds don't always do. There are a couple of electeds who are very, very focused on transportation. He is repeating back crash data and vehicle volumes and historical trends. He has not made an announcement yet, but he did go just this morning. He wanted to see it in person. So we were at a couple of different points along the corridor. Many members of the community came out. I'm expecting an announcement from him soon, but I can't tell you when that will be. It never hurts to support projects you love. So anybody who wants to send him an email or a letter, I will suggest make sure to send it to him or his office. Sending it to me doesn't really get you what you're looking to do now. His tally, his logbook of those is separate. He gets CC'd on things, but that is not the full impact. Make sure it goes to him if you want to support it.
Thank you, that's helpful.
All right,
Mike Van Dusen had his hand up.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, I was in the Super Neighborhood 15 Heights meeting, and it was quite a spirited meeting. The end result of the meeting, though, was that Mark Williamson was going to send a letter of support to the city for continuation of the project. So I don't know who it went to or what the content of the letter was, but it was a letter of support.
And that went to both the mayor and myself.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any more? Trevor?
Hi, I'm just wondering if there's any update on the MKT spur. It seemed like there was a lot of activity at the beginning, but that it's been somewhat on pause the last few times I've looked at it. Wondering if there's any update on the expected completion of that.
And I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question. You're talking about the bridge?
The spur, not the bridge.
Which one's the spur? I can't remember.
Is that the one that breaks off?
From White Oak Bayou that connects to the MKT trail.
So that's the city side version. So I'll give you both.
Yeah.
Even though you only asked for one. The Houston Parks Board leading the bridge part of it, we're told very, very soon. They don't have a specific date, but I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but very, very soon. And once we have that announcement, we will also let the BAC about know, as well as all our bikeways, social media. The spur is a little further behind. I don't have an exact date, and I can look into it. But the first one that you get good news on is the bridge.
Okay, thank you.
I got a few more hands.
Melissa Biller is back.
Well, I didn't talk at public comment, so I'd like to make a comment. Sorry, there's an echo, and that's really making me uncomfortable.
We don't hear the echo on the side.
Okay. Well, so I wanted to bring up the fact that the housing department is doing a couple of large tract housing developments, which is really, really awesome. I don't know how much the transportation team was involved in maybe the site selection process as well as that for that. But they're in a couple places, and one is particularly, it's in Cityscape south of Sunnyside. And this is in our Southeast Mobility Plan area. And this is, hundreds of homes, and there's a lot of opportunity to connect these homes to Sims Bayou as well as Alameda Genoa for the bus stops. And so right now there's no sidewalks on the street. There's no bikeways. There's also no transit. And so I've added some comments to their map, but I just wanted to bring it to, the team's attention that there are these projects that are bringing hundreds of homes that are also going to be affordable to our communities, but it's kind of lacking a lot of transportation options. I put in the second link for the Stella Link homes as well, and that is actually next to transit, but not sure about the bikeway situation. So I just wanted to raise that as an issue. This could also be, this is really more of a larger transportation planning issue. So I'd love to see more collaboration between the planning department and the housing department.
That's it. No more comments and no more hands are raised.
I have one thing, since I did mention about the maintenance. I wanted to talk about I know we drafted a estimate about how much it would cost to maintain the bike lanes. Is what would be the next step after that once it gets, I guess it goes to CIP budget hearing or whatever?
Right. So the budget, the individual department budget hearings were last week, and several people came and spoke at Public Works. There was a TTI committee meeting maybe a week or two before that. Tom spoke about the same topic. So that has started to get into the record, but they're also still taking public comment on the budget. So more comments about make sure these dollars are used to maintain the bike lanes at the same level as general city streets. That's all, that will be heard by council and the mayor. So that's all useful.
Where do you submit those comments at? Is that just like with each council member?
You can do it with the council member, but there's a budget page on the city website.
Okay.
And maybe, Brandon, we can send that out as part of the package after this. Sure will.
Okay. Awesome. So if there's anybody else have any more questions, feedback? All right, let's move on to announcements. Go ahead, David.
Okay. Some of these are repeats of what you've heard, but on May 31st, there will be the Destination Trail Open House. I'm not going to read everything. You see it on your slide, but it is Tuesday, the 31st at 6 p.m. at the Raul C. Martinez Courthouse Annex at 3018 Emancipation Avenue, Houston. Next up, we have the Houston Bicycle Museum Interest Meeting. Because we haven't heard this one yet, I will read more details. Joy Boone, owner-operator of the Houston Bicycle Museum, is holding a meeting to gather community interest on restarting the museum. The museum operated from 2015 to 2019, but closed due to Holocaust Museum expansion. This meeting will be on June 9th from 4 to 6:40. We may want to check that time. That's very specific. At Clayton Library 5300 Caroline. And for more information, info at houstonbicyclemuseum.org. Please add to your calendars on June 12th. City is going to host a pop-up bike lane to demonstrate the incoming Calhoun Griggs MLK safety improvements being implemented by Harris County Precinct 1. This is specifically going to be the 5100 block of Griggs between MLK and Millard. We don't have the specific time. We are tying it with the commissioner's bike ride so that we will make sure to be out there as well as the bike ride meeting at that same time, but it will be in the afternoon. And then just our upcoming meeting schedule for the BAC. Next month will be the Education Subcommittee, June 22nd, here again in Planning Department offices. The Bicycle Advisory Committee of the Whole will be July 27th. That will be in the City Hall Annex. And then your next meeting of the Infrastructure Subcommittee on August 24th, most likely back here in Planning Department offices.
Let's see, Tom had a hand raised. Thought it pop up.
Yeah, that was my typo on the meeting time. Sorry about that. It's from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. That's the schedule.
I'll make sure I update those in the slides.
All right, y'all. 4 o'clock. I think one of the earliest ones we've had. Thank you all for coming. And if anybody else has any comments or before we shut it down. All right. Well, thank you all again, and see you all at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
All right.